a heads up, the content of this character may be unsettling for some people. It's pretty graphic and very much violent. As such, I am going to be taking away the color from certain clips in this video. Overall, viewer discretion is advised. When you think of iconic video game ninjas, who's the first to come to mind? Okay, yeah, sure, I did just make that video, but who else comes to mind? Okay, sure, they are in Smash, so a lot of people know who they are, but is there any specific ninja who comes to mind? Maybe one from the classic NES days? Who even is that? Hayabusa! Ryu Hayabusa! The legendary dragon ninja from the Ninja Gaiden games! In terms of backstory, there really isn't too much of one. He's a ninja, so he does ninja things like assassinating, being sneaky, sometimes fighting demons, participating in public fighting tournaments, you know, the usual ninja stuff. He was born into the dragon lineage legacy, a bloodline passed down through generations of powerful ninja. So he was taught in the ways of ninjutsu since childhood, quickly becoming one of his clan's greatest warriors. Hayabusa is the very best at what he does, but is that enough to help him keep up with the likes of the other combatants in Super Smash Bros? Let's find out. So getting right into things, I see Ryu as a way below average mid-weight class fighter, borderlining on lightweight. He'd have 2 jumps, and like any good ninja, he would be able to wall jump with the use of his flying bird flip technique, as well as wall cling. Since his original NES titles give him so little to work with, the crux of building Hayabusa's moveset stemmed predominantly from the modern Ninja Gaiden titles, which to be fair, are probably the ones that most of you guys are more familiar with anyway. He did also make appearances in the Dead or Alive fighting games, but I won't be pulling any attacks from those since he's strictly a hand-to-hand fighter in those games. And for this moveset, I want him using his preferred and most powerful weapon of choice. The Dragon Sword, a family heirloom made from the fang of a dragon that can only be wielded by a true dragon ninja. Seriously, if anyone else tries picking it up, it'll snack on their soul. Then again, the Dragon Sword is even better at doing that in Ryu's hands, being utilized for a variety of different techniques that his opponents will never see coming. Starting with his jab, he can have a 5-hit jab that has Ryu perform the same 5-hit combo from Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge. Starting with Slant Slash, a diagonal swing, into Crescent Slash, a horizontal slash, into Lotus Slash, a spin into another diagonal swipe, which leads into Moon Crush Slash, another horizontal slash, and finally the Divine Moon Crush Slash, a strong vertical slash that acts as the finishing move to launch foes away. His dash attack can have Ryu perform Violent Wind, a horizontal sword slash out of his dash. On the surface, it seems simple, but it has another little unique property that you don't normally see from dash attacks. Pressing the attack button again before Violent Wind ends will have Ryu follow it up with Violent Gale, which has him swing his sword horizontally into the other direction while lunging a little further forward, extending its potential range. That said, you aren't limited to just going forward with Violent Gale. If you hold the control stick backward while pressing the attack button during Violent Wind, Ryu will actually turn around to use Violent Gale, acting as a potential fake-out option or to catch opponents who might have dodged behind him. For his side tilt, he could use Rending Drill, a straight stab attack forward with the Dragon Sword. And if you use side tilt again during Rending Drill, he'll follow it up with the Piercing Dragon Ring Slash, which has him do a front flip to slam his sword into the ground forward. One neat little detail regarding the side tilt is that you can cancel the first or second hits of the jab into the side tilt by holding forward on the control stick during those 2 hits of the jab. It won't work if he's using the 3rd jab or beyond that. Why bother doing this? Well, it gives Piercing Dragon Ring Slash a nifty little benefit that it wouldn't have otherwise. Something to mention about Ryu's attacks as a whole is that they generally do very pitiful shield damage. He can rush in to dish out tons of pain, but if he's blocked, he might have some problems. His best means to combat this issue is the Piercing Dragon Ring Slash after the jab was cancelled into Rending Drill. Cause not only does that grant the Ring Slash a higher damage output, it also causes it to deal a high amount of damage to shields. Never enough to break a full shield, but certainly enough to scare your opponent a little. This whole idea comes from how heavy attacks are able to break enemy guard in the modern Ninja Gaiden games, and the Piercing Dragon Ring Slash is a heavy attack in Razor's Edge, so it only makes sense. It should also be noted that there is a difference in launch angles between the last hits of the jab and side tilt. The jab will generally launch opponents horizontally, and the side tilt will launch opponents into the air, with them being bounced straight up if they were hit by the sword at the moment it slammed into the ground. Now for his up tilt, Ryu can perform the Azure Dragon, a technique that has Ryu jump with a rising sword slash to launch opponents into the air. Being better for hitting opponents above or right in front of Ryu, this is a great attack for starting combos with, appropriate to its origins. Since Ryu jumps during it, it can dodge lower attacks, and on top of that, the animation technically ends before he lands, so you can easily follow it up with movement or an aerial attack afterward. The down tilt can be Ryu's Windmill Slash, a simple move that starts with Ryu doing a quick roll forward, then slashes down as he completes the roll. He obviously does move forward during his roll, making it great for spacing and movement, and the slice doesn't launch opponents very far, so it's another nice combo tool. Now for Ryu's side smash, he could use his powerful Annihilating Demon technique, showing Ryu holding his blade to his side as he charges Essence, then lunges forward with a powerful horizontal slash when released. Aside from being a decently long-range smash attack, it looks pretty basic, right? Well, I wouldn't be hyping it up if it were. So let me just stick this right here. Ryu will have a ki gauge, one that only fills up whenever he lands basic attacks or grabs. Once he has full ki, certain attacks will change, and using those changed attacks will empty the gauge. Annihilating Demon is one of the few attacks that can take advantage of this. Landing it with full ki has Ryu immediately follow it up with a barrage of deadly strikes, racking up tons of damage, then launching them away afterward, practically guaranteeing a KO. It's very powerful, but you have to be sure to land it, because using the side smash with full ki will always empty the gauge, even if you miss. And the barrage will only start if you actually hit an opponent. If they shield your strike, it won't activate. So you can't just spam the side smash and hope for the best. If you want to land that powerful finishing attack, you have to land it first. Moving along to Ryu's up smash, he could use the Azure Dragon's big brother, the Scarlet Dragon. No, not that one. This one. He does the same kind of rising sword slash that he does for his up tilt, only this time he remains planted on the ground. He won't jump. In exchange for that mobility and range, this move is obviously much more powerful, on top of being able to charge it since it is a smash attack. Speaking of which, charging the Scarlet Dragon can throw opponents for a loop, because Ryu actually crouches while he charges, letting him potentially duck under higher attacks to punish opponents trying to use them. And as a fun side note, I felt it quite appropriate to make Azure Dragon the up tilt and Scarlet Dragon the up smash, since in all three modern Ninja Gaiden games, they both use the same command input, but you have to tap the button for Azure Dragon and hold it for Scarlet Dragon. So things kinda just work out this way. In which case, for the down smash, he could use the Flying Crane technique. This is an interesting down smash that also works as a sort of pseudo up smash. The attack starts with Ryu spinning low to the ground with his sword held out, then ends with him jumping into the air to do a sword uppercut in front of himself. While spinning, he can hit opponents on both sides, and they'll be sucked in to take multiple hits of damage. Quad foes will always end up positioned in front of Ryu so that they'll be hit by the jumping slash, which will launch them into the air. While it deals more damage than the up smash, it doesn't launch them nearly as high, so the down smash might be a little better for combos while foes are at lower percentages. Otherwise, it's just a good move to potentially get them off of you. Opponents can be hit by the jump slash only if they were above Ryu when it's used, but only getting hit by that isn't nearly as ideal for Ryu. For probably Ryu's strongest tools in his ninja kit, the aerials, his neutral air could have him use the Falling Falcon, having him do 2 clock spins while his sword is held out to hit all around himself twice. Suspiciously much like the neutral air that I gave to Raiden now that I think about it. Well, the first hit of this attack only causes flinching, and the second hit is what launches opponents. His forward air can be the Blade of the Empty Air technique. This will actually be a multi-hit forward air, able to use up to 3 sword swings each time you consecutively press the attack button. He always starts with the blade of the empty air, followed by the whirlwind in empty air, and ends it with the triple whirlwind in empty air, which is the strike that will launch opponents away. You know, I also gave Raiden a multi-hitting forward air, didn't I? Huh. In which case, you don't need to dedicate yourself to all 3 strikes. You can stop partway to use other attacks if you so wish. Now for the back air, here's the only basic attack to reference the classic NES games, simply having Raiden turn to— oh, oops, I accidentally wrote Raiden instead of Ryu. You ninjas are all the same. Oh, great. Now the ninjas on Twitter are gonna cancel me. Whatever, enough about that lame I can't rocket punch robot. Ryu will turn around to swing his sword behind himself horizontally, not unlike how he swung his sword in the NES games. It's a fairly basic back air. It comes out quick and is decently reliable in terms of damage and launch power. The up air can have Ryu use his Dragon Tail Slash technique, having him do a backflip to swing his sword overhead from front to back. Then when he completes the flip, he swings it overhead again, turning it into a 2-hit strike. The first hit causes flinching, and the second hit is what launches players. And his down air could have Ryu use Helmet Splitter. He simply falls so he can stab his sword down into the ground and or the helmets below him. It is a falling down air that cancels itself if it takes too long to hit the ground, so Ryu should be able to recover safely if it's used off stage so long as you don't go too deep. This is also a rare instance of a falling down air that cannot spike opponents, only knock them away. Now normally this is the part where I start going over the grabs, but I'm not actually done with the down air, because it outright changes if used under the correct circumstances. You're able to cancel the forward air after any of the 3 swings into the down air. And if you do, Ryu won't use Helmet Splitter, he'll use the Blade of Nirti technique. He starts it with a spin, then falls with his sword held forward, slashing down and pulling back once he lands. Really, the Blade of Nirti is more of an extension of the forward air. You just need to use the down air during the forward air to use it. And since you can only use it out of the forward air, it will more than likely be hitting every time if used properly. And if it does, it's guaranteed to spike opponents. However, unlike Helmet Splitter, the Blade of Nirti has to land for it to stop, so using it over the blast zone will cause Ryu to lose a stock. It should be noted though that opponents spiked by this move generally will hit the blast zone before Ryu so long as their damage was high enough. Even so, if you want to safely use it to finish an opponent off, it's best done when you're a stock ahead, or if you can position yourself like this, where Ryu is right over the ledge, but the opponent isn't. Then again, this is Smash we're talking about. Style over results! Dang it! Ryu can grab with one arm and pummel by pulling out one of his kunai and slashing at the opponent back and forth. The forward throw can have Ryu use the guillotine throw, where he grabs the opponent's head and does a front flip to build momentum and toss the foe forward. The back throw can have him use one of his obliteration attacks from Ninja Gaiden 2. Specifically the one where he slashes at the opponent while also climbing over their shoulder, then drops down on them from behind to slash at their back and launch them away. The up throw can be one of Ryu's most iconic attacks. So iconic that it's in both Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. The Izuna drop. Ryu knocks the foe into the air, ninja warps next to them to grab them, then drops down while spinning to slam the foe into the ground, bouncing them back into the air. This is Ryu's strongest throw, dealing the most amount of damage, and it has a decent amount of kill potential. But don't worry, it won't make their heads explode. Then for Ryu's down throw, he could use the Fiend Seal attack from Ninja Gaiden 1, where he knocks the foe to the ground, then stabs down on them with his sword, knocking them away. For Hayabusa's neutral special, he could use one of his most common weapons spread across all 3 modern Ninja Gaiden games. The perfect weapon for silently taking out targets from long distances. His bow and arrow. This is a pretty simple special. You tap the button to fire the projectile and hold it down to ready it up, then fire it once the button is let go. While holding it, you can move the control stick up or down to aim where you want to fire the arrow, and you can cancel the aiming by dodging. No matter how you fire the gravity-affected arrow, it always flies at the same speed and deals the same amount of damage and knockback. So the bow is pretty easy to use, but that's not all there is to the neutral special, because this is an attack that's affected by Ryu's ki. If you use the neutral special while at full ki, instead of pulling out his bow, Ryu will cast one of his powerful ninpo, magic ninjutsu spells that ninja will use when they need real firepower. And in this specific case, I mean that literally. His full ki neutral special will have Ryu use the Art of the Inferno and shoot a large fireball straight forward. It travels a long distance and deals heavy damage and knockback, so getting hit by it generally will mean certain death. Of course, it actually has to land in the first place, and since it is a projectile, it can be reflected. Not to mention, just like the other attacks that I've mentioned and will mention that can only be used when the ki gauge is full, using it depletes the gauge to empty, so it obviously cannot be spammed. For Ryu's side special, he can use another common weapon used not only in the modern games, but the classic ones as well: his throwing stars. These are weak but fairly spammable projectiles that deal small damage. They can only cause flinching hit stun at most, but only when they hit from within a certain distance from Ryu. If they fly too far before hitting an opponent, then they deal no hit stun at all. There's a few ways to use them. Tapping the button has Ryu throw a single star. Mashing it has him keep throwing stars, chucking up to 4 at a time before pausing for a second to ready and throw another 4. He'll keep throwing stars so long as you keep mashing the button. But remember, they can only be thrown straight forward while on the ground, so mashing too much can get Ryu punished if his opponents jump over the stars. You can also throw stars while running, and doing so has Ryu automatically throw 4 stars while he does a dive, letting him poke at opponents while also closing in on them. And if used in the air, all stars thrown, whether tapped or mashed, will be thrown down diagonally forward. Now the side special is another move that takes advantage of Ryu's ki. Using it at full ki has him use the Art of the Wind Blades. He casts forwards a large number of wind blades that all fly at varying angles in front of Ryu. This ninpo has moderate range, and each wind blade deals moderate damage and only minor hit stun. But they will also pierce through everything. Opponents, the stage, and even shields. Those just get ignored as if the opponent wasn't shielding at all. Plus, the blades do not count as projectiles, so they cannot be reflected. So while this ninpo won't be getting any KOs anytime soon, it's fantastic at racking up tons of damage very quickly and effortlessly. If you think Ryu is about to use this, you're better off trying to get behind him or just getting out of his way entirely. Next, for Ryu's up special, another move seen in all 3 modern games, he could use the Flying Swallow technique. Using this has Ryu dash into any chosen diagonal direction at high speeds. Yes, only diagonally. He can't go straight up, down, left, or right. Holding into one of those directions will default him into the closest possible diagonal direction. The only way to technically go straight left or right is if this move is used on a flat horizontal surface. In the air though, it's strictly diagonal. It's a pretty good recovery move that puts him into free fall afterwards, and opponents in his path take a decent amount of damage and knockback. And if you do hit a player with it, you can actually extend it. If you press the special button again after landing the Flying Swallow, Ryu will be able to dash a second time to perform the Azure Swallow, which behaves just like the Flying Swallow, but it's a little stronger. And if you do the same thing after landing the Azure Swallow, you can extend it one final time to perform the Divine Flying Swallow, which, again, performs the same but has more power than the Azure Swallow. So if used properly, you can use one or more of your opponents to soar across the screen at blinding speed. Use it to mix players up or to use those trying to edgeguard you as literal stepping stones to get back to the stage. Then lastly, for Ryu's down special, he could use a tool that made a few appearances in the modern games but showed the most presence in the classic games: the Windmill Shuriken. This is a boomerang projectile. He throws it forward, then after flying a set distance, pivots to fly back toward Ryu. If it touches Ryu, he'll catch it. But it's a lot more fun if you avoid catching the shuriken at all costs. Cause if it misses Ryu, it will keep flying for a bit like most boomerang weapons in Smash, except it will eventually turn back into the other direction again. The windmill shuriken can only fly so far away from Ryu, and it will constantly follow his position. So if you keep avoiding it, it'll keep flying back and forth indefinitely until Ryu finally catches it, or if it hits anything. The shuriken hitting a player, certain items, or the stage will cause it to disappear immediately. If it does hit a player, it deals a little damage and a small amount of knockback, but it also causes a lot of hit stun. So the windmill shuriken's greatest asset is putting pressure on opponents, since a reliable Hayabusa can more than likely capitalize some combos off of it quite easily. It does have some flaws though. While the windmill shuriken is flying around, not only is Ryu not able to use his down special again, but he's also locked out from using his neutral special and side special. The windmill shuriken has to either be caught or disappear before Ryu can gain access to those specials again. The shuriken getting reflected will also give Ryu access to those specials again, and if it is reflected, it'll no longer pivot, just fly in a straight direction. That all said, the down special is another move that takes advantage of Ryu's ki. Using a full ki down special has Ryu perform the powerful art of the fire wheels. This ninpo has Ryu surround his body with flames for a short amount of time. While surrounded by flames, it is practically impossible to get too close to him. Opponents who touch the flames take damage and will be knocked back. Even those with disjointed attacks will have a hard time getting close. You'll need Belmont lengths of disjoint if you want to stand a chance. This of course also makes it impossible to grab Ryu. Even if he's snagged by a tether grab, as soon as he's pulled in, the tetherer will just get knocked away by the intense heat. So while Ryu is using the fire wheel, your best bet is to poke at him from afar. But even that will be very difficult to do. Ryu is a rushdown character in every sense of the word. He has plenty of projectiles, but those are used for neutral play at best. And while his ninpo is quite powerful, there's a reason why I designed his ki to only be filled through close range options. You're rewarded with fighting up close and personal. Hayabusa is at his strongest when he's right up in your face. He may not be the sneakiest ninja, but he is by far one of the deadliest. And I haven't even gotten to his final smash yet. For Ryu Hayabusa's final smash, he could use his ultimate technique. It's gone through a few names across games, but for this one, I'm going with Storm of the Heavenly Dragon. This is a semi-cinematic final smash like his fellow ninja. He starts with a powerful slash forward, and if it connects on anyone, Ryu will begin barraging them with a huge assault of deadly and devastating attacks, ending with an almost Ragnarok-style strike that will launch them away. Opponents hit by the initial strike are trapped in the final smash. Others who weren't, though, can still get hit, but they can fall out just as easily. That said, even if other players manage to avoid getting caught in the ultimate technique, they still aren't safe. Because believe it or not, Ryu's final smash will also pull from his ki gauge. And if he had full ki after finishing the final smash, he'll automatically target a different player who was closest to him and use his final smash a second time on that player. So long as you land your final smash on at least one player while Ryu has full ki, he's guaranteed to hit a second player right afterward. This will only work on a different player though. He can't use the second final smash on a player that was already caught in the first final smash. Something to note as well, while using the second final smash will deplete the ki gauge, that's the only time that it will. Missing the first final smash or the second final smash not activating will not waste the ki gauge. For Hayabusa's colors, his default has him in his legendary black falcon suit, his most iconic and usual attire that we've seen since the start of the modern Ninja Gaiden games. His first alternate color can make the battle suit white, which is the color used in Dead or Alive 6, but it can also reference his Sigma 2 suit from Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. The second can make it green, another color in Dead or Alive 6, as well as one that can reference his Type 20 suit from the original modern Ninja Gaiden 2. Original modern. That's kind of an oxymoron, but you guys know what I mean. Next is a gold color for the battle suit, referencing his weapons costume in Dead or Alive 6, as well as his tribal costume also from Ninja Gaiden 2. Then for the next 4 alts, they can all be iconic and common costumes that we've seen Ryu in between both Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, starting with his traditional dark blue legendary ninja garb, the slightly redesigned original outfit that he wore in the classic Ninja Gaiden games. Then here's his throwback costume, an outfit that he wore in Dead or Alive 2, which also happened to be the tournament that he won. Next is the Spirit of the Fighter costume, DLC that was introduced in Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. And finally, here's his Dragon Muscle Suit, black and red armor, also known as the Doppelganger costume. For his stage intro, he appears out of nowhere from a whirlwind of leaves. This was how he entered fights in the very first Dead or Alive game, but we also see him do this on occasion in cutscenes throughout the other Dead or Alive games. For taunts, Ryu's first can show him kneeling down to meditate, just like he can do in Ninja Gaiden 3. While it heals him in that game, it obviously won't here. But as a fun detail, the aura that emits from his body while he meditates could grow larger depending on how much ki he currently has charged up. His second taunt can be an actual taunt seen in Dead or Alive 5 and 6, where Ryu waves his arms around all ninja-like while he yells,
"You cannot distract me."
And his final taunt can show a falcon suddenly fly in out of nowhere and land on Ryu's arm, after which he sends it away. This references how Ryu saves games in Ninja Gaiden 3. And lastly, for Hayabusa's victory animations, his first can show him swing his sword to the side to fling off any fluids, then sheaths it. Yes, Raiden did this too, but that's just a ninja thing I guess, so don't at me. Ryu does this whenever he finishes a fight in the modern Ninja Gaiden games. The second can be one of his victory animations from Dead or Alive 5, where he does a jump kick, then holds a battle stance while saying,
"I have no weakness."
And his last can be a victory animation from Dead or Alive 6, where he does a mock sword swing, then holds a ninja pose. During this, he'll say,
"Do you feel it? I have purged your evil."
You sure about that, dude? I still have a comment section, so I don't think my evil is purged just yet. And that does it for What If Ryu Hayabusa was in Smash? So, if you enjoyed what you saw and would like to see even more characters be given possible Smash movesets, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to support the show, you can do so by clicking the join button either below the video, the one on my main page, or the link in the description to become a sponsor for my channel. Doing so will get you access to my Discord server, channel emotes, as well as the option to watch these episodes early on top of so much more. And of course, if you have a character that you want to see be given a possible Smash moveset, leave a comment down below or contact me on Twitter at BrawlFan1 on Twit. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching!